Texas at Michigan. Texas favored in this one by 7.5 on the road versus Michigan. Michigan 23-game winning streak at home, but the Vegas, they think Texas can come in this one and win by more than a touchdown. This game's going to be at noon on Fox. For like Penn State, that kind of makes the home field advantage a little bit worse because they don't have the wideout. I don't know if it really does that against Michigan. They're kind of used to it. They've had Ohio State there plenty of times at noon, so I feel like the fans are kind of used to it at this point. But so this Texas-Michigan game, Kris, I'm going to let you go first on this one. I have a few stats I want to bring up, but I'm going to let you start us off with your thoughts on Michigan-Texas.
I'm a big matchup guy, right? So like when I first see this on paper, I think about like Zach's film room, and I think about Isaiah Bond going up against the guy himself, Will Johnson. So that's kind of one of the initial thoughts. But I don't think Michigan's any good, JR. Like I think Michigan is a really fraudulent football team. I think I would not be surprised to see them have 4 losses, this being one of them, because they just don't have the formula to be a good team. Like they lost their entire offensive line. They lost their best players on offense, both of them. Their 2 top players on offense. New coaching staff. Obviously, Sharon Moore's there, but last week against Fresno State, they couldn't do anything. They have a quarterback. They can't throw the football. They have a run game, an offensive line. They couldn't get push against Fresno State. It just feels like this is a team that came entirely back to earth, and we're going to see a pretty sizable fall off. Almost like when LSU had their fall off. 2019 was really good. The next year, not very good. And I don't know if Michigan recruits enough to kind of overcome that. And that's why this line back in the day was 3.5 Texas favorite, and now it's 7.5. I think Steve Sarkisian is going to take advantage of kind of that corner opposite Will Johnson, and I honestly think that this game could end up looking like the Clemson-Georgia game.
Wow, that's a take. I don't disagree that it could happen that way, right? I mean, I'm not going to predict that's going to happen, but I could definitely see a scenario where that does happen. I mean, listen, big game Don has to show back up. You can't keep having, low game Don showing up and he's like, oh yeah, Khalil Mullins, I'll let you do your thing. Yeah. When I went to Big Ten Media Days, Donovan Edwards, I mean, he was confident in himself. He really, he had a different swagger to himself than I've seen him work with before and him walk around with. Now, I'd never seen him walking around in person, but at least on the sidelines last year, you could kind of see the man was feeling down, felt like, oh yeah, Blake Corum is RB1 on this team. I get my chances. But, he's shown up against Ohio State. He showed up against Washington last year. He's shown up in the big games. You're going to have a legendary defensive performance in this game, and you're also going to have Donovan Edwards go for 100 plus, possibly 200 yards, a touchdown or 2 in order to win this game, because he's going to have to be able to open things up for Davis Warren. My big stat I want to bring up is that against Fresno State, now, I don't know. Maybe Kirk Campbell is just trying to look vanilla. Again, I hate that. Open your playbook and do your playbook. Who cares if the other team knows what you're running? You should be good enough at it that it doesn't matter if the other team knows what you're running, right? Michigan, shouldn't matter if the other team knows what you're running, right? Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'll move on. But Michigan only ran play action 5 times. They only ran play action 5 times against Fresno State, and one of those times was with Alex Orji. How many touchdown passes did Alex Orji have? 1 and 1 completion. It was on play action. So like, why are you not running more play action? Davis Warren had a touchdown pass. That big long throw that turned out to be an interception, that was play action. If you watch that play back, I genuinely feel like the wide receiver he was behind the defense enough that if Davis Warren threw that ball over the defense, if he would have actually led him, I think that could have been a touchdown. Now, who knows how fast the safety is? He could have caught up to him, right? We'll never know for sure, but it did look like there was a possibility for that. He underthrew the ball horribly. It was awful, and so that's how you see the pick. That's why it looked like triple coverage, because threw it into the 3 guys that were
back
chasing
into coverage. He threw it back into coverage.
Exactly. So, but I think that's what Michigan has to get back to in this game. They have to be able to rely on their running game, and they have to be able to run play action, because that's what they had success with Davis Warren and Alex Orji. So, I watched a video, I don't know if you saw it, Kris, of Urban Meyer breaking down like the 2 different offenses that Michigan runs. Did you see that video?
I did.
So
I don't know how big JR. I'm a junkie, JR.
I know you are, man. I know you're watching everything, so I figured you saw it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that's going to play a factor into it, just because I think they're probably going to use Alex Orji less in this game, which, like, in
you
my
think
mind,
you think they're going to use him less?
I think so, dude. Like from the way Sharon Moore has been talking in his press conferences, it just sounds like he wants to rock with Davis Warren rather than Alex Orji, which I'm like, dude, that sucks. I think that's a terrible decision.
Yeah.
I think you need to roll with Alex Orji more. If he's not your starter, at least put him in for 25% of the offensive snaps over Davis Warren, just because of what he brings as a threat. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Michigan defense a little bit more after I mentioned the play action and get into like the Alex Orji, Davis Warren? Are you with me? You think Orji needs to play more, or you
Yeah,
think,
I would play Orgy a ton more. In fact,
yeah,
I think I might start Orgy because I don't think Warren can throw the football. So I would absolutely play Orgy. And
yeah,
yes, casual Big Ten, that does count as an orgy in the end zone. I will I will steal the thunder on that one. I think Orgy needs to play a lot. I think it provides an element. And also I think what it'll do, people don't realize, it'll open up the run game more. We've
yeah.
seen it at Ohio State, like having the extra numbers in the box, like having that JT Barrett type, even when you can't throw the football, the zone read looks better. It's more effective. It makes you think more. It makes you wonder. And then also the gaps look a little bigger because guys can't just shoot gaps. They have to account for the running back. I think honestly, if you want to run a run heavy offense, have a running quarterback, do it that way, run the sweeps, add the numbers, equate the numbers. We've seen several schools across college football stumble their way into 8 wins because they have a really mobile quarterback that's not the best thrower. Period. You don't need a pro style guy. Like go play the advantage where you have, and I think Alex Orji provides that. And I think if Alex Orji does not play a lot in this game, that is the first major coaching blunder of Sharon Moore's career.
Well, and I think it comes back to the issue of the offensive coordinator, right? I mean, Kirk Campbell lost his job at Old Dominion
Yeah.
when he was offensive coordinator there. He's never really been an offensive coordinator that has put his quarterbacks out there as running threats all that often. He's always been a pro style guy. And so when you hire Kirk Campbell to be your offensive coordinator, I think Sharon Moore, if he was still running this offense, I think he'd be way more creative. I mean, some of the stuff he was doing last year with how they were like lining up with 7 offensive linemen, they were still spreading it out and they were running sweeps to the side. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, that it looks like an ugly formation, but man, is it creative. And so I almost wish Sharon Moore was running this offense still because I feel like it would be working better with what he's trying to do. But unfortunately, I just don't know if Kirk Campbell can run that stuff or will run that stuff as much as Sharon Moore was. So I think that's a big part of the issue here. I don't necessarily think Michigan has bad players on offense. I mean, some of them definitely. I'm not a fan of their wide receivers. I think some of them are fast, but I don't think they run super great routes. And I think being wide receiver and being a deep threat is much more than just running fast.
Yeah.
I mean, example number 1, Jaden Ballard. This dude is like lightning quick, but he can't get on the field because that's all he does is run quick, right?
All he wants to do is run and have cool tattoos, dog.
Yeah. Well, which to each their own. I can't argue.
Yeah. His leg sleeve is crazy. I've seen it. It's crazy.
It is pretty sweet. But yeah, so I think that Kirk Campbell has to be able to work in a different offense because I don't think the pro style offense is what is best for this team. And what do great offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators do? They use the best players on their team and they build the offense around them. Unfortunately, I don't think Kirk Campbell is doing that, and it's going to kick him. So, defense. Kris, I've heard a lot of people say Texas is not going to score any more than like 10 points. I guess not a lot of people. I've heard a couple people say it.
I heard that dude.
That.
I heard that dude say that. I'm glad that his friends checked him. Like, come on, all right, the rest of us, easiest battle ever. Yeah,
you probably watched the whole episode with how much
I did. I had to go back through. I'm familiar with. I feel like if anybody has a microphone, I'll listen to your show just so I can see what everybody's saying.
Yeah. So you probably know a little bit more, but I don't know. What do you think about this Michigan defense? Because I really like the starters they have, but I don't know about this depth. I mean, they were rotating Will Johnson off the field at times against Fresno State, and I'm like, what in the world are you doing? I understand wanting to keep him fresh, like especially for Texas next week, but like this dude's got to stay on the field, especially Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore. Those two are some awesome defensive ends. They have some really great pass rushing ability. Jayshawn Barham, I think that he's a really good blitzer, really good pass rusher. He was pretty susceptible in coverage against Fresno State, so I don't love that. However, I mean, if you can get him to the quarterback, how many times we talked about guys that just have a knack for getting to the quarterback and just do it in a lethal way. So what's your thoughts on this defense and the matchup with Texas?
I think sometimes when guys have talent gaps, they can develop bad habits. I thought Michigan's defense was very disruptive, but I thought some of the habits that they were putting on tape were kind of bad habits. Maybe them pressing, trying to make a play. There were times on tape where I saw, Will Johnson get beat on double moves, other guys get beat on double moves. I'm curious to see the guy who is the master manipulator, right? Mr. I know how to sequence plays, Steve Sarkisian, how many double moves he'll try to get guys to bite on to create big plays and get guys out of position. So that's what I see. I do think this Michigan defense has a chance to be disruptive. Quinn Ewers tends to put the ball in harm's way a good amount from the way he carries it. It's real, looks like he's about to fumble always. And sometimes he's got the quote unquote ultimate arm arrogance and thinks he can make every throw. But I think that this defense against Quinn Ewers is why Quinn Ewers came back. Quinn Ewers has a chance to make a lot of money this year, and it starts with facing a well-respected defense. No matter how you feel about the Michigan team or the offense, it's a respected defense, and Quinn Ewers came to make money, and to make money, you got to make plays against that group. I give the slight edge, I think, overall roster-wise, probably to the Michigan defense. If you talk about unit, but the single most impressive player to me in terms of like arm ability would be Quinn Ewers. He's the guy that of all the quarterbacks in the country, there's probably 3 that are able to pick apart this defense. He's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if he is not just he, but if Sark is able to scheme up some things where Will Johnson is trying to be, cheat up too much and they get behind him, which did happen against Fresno State a couple times. Now,
yeah, they caught him with his hand in the cookie jar. And, we saw when he exploded through, it made a big pick 6. But if you develop those bad habits because you make a play, it's like you see it in baseball. When guys go compete in the home run derby, sometimes you see right after the home run derby, you see a slump. Why? Because guys are dropping their hands and sacrificing fundamentals to increase bat speed and exit velo, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's that's the poison. That's the poison. Is that pick the poison? Do I think I can jump every screen? And then you see Sark will throw an orbit motion in there and get guys out of position. So I'm curious to see what Sark does early to test Will Johnson, because I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will too. Which, by the way, I love orbit motion, dude.
Me too, dude. Name. Big orbit motion guy. I love the orbit.
I love the name. I love the play style of it. I love what it does to the defense. I just love so much about it. The only thing I don't like about orbit motion is when the quarterback puts his back to the defense, like CJ Stroud would do a few times. Now, CJ Stroud is good enough. He still picked apart the defense, but not every quarterback can do that. All right, couple comments here, and then we'll get to score predictions. Casual Big Ten says, I'm 100% with KD. I think starting Davis Warren was a false flag to not give Texas tape on Alex. If they are rocking with Davis, it's a mistake. Mm-hmm. Brian also says the Michigan defense will wear down in the second half because the Michigan offense won't be able to sustain drives just like UGA Clemson. That's true. I mean, I don't think Georgia scored a touchdown on offense until the third quarter. Like, they really started to pull ahead at that time.
Correct. So that's when they started to really wear them down.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a situation where it's like 3-10, maybe 3-13 or something like that in favor of Texas at halftime, but yeah, we'll see. So, all right, score predictions. Hey, I went first in the last 2. Kris, I'll let you go first this time.
Ooh, score prediction for this one. I think I have 24-13 Texas. Okay. Yeah. And that's right around where I'm at. I don't think Texas is going to run away wild. I think if it does get ugly, they've got a chance to make it ugly late. But I think the Michigan defense could cause enough problems early for this to kind of be one of those games where you look up in the first quarter 0-3, and it's like, oh, what happened? And then you see two scores in one quarter. That's when things kind of pick up. So I think that's what I'm leaning on.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning on 27-16 for Texas. I think that they rely on that field goal kicker and let him hit like 3 field goals in this game. Dude hit like a 50-yarder plus.
He's got a boot, man. Everybody got field goal kickers except for us.
I need to know where Michigan is going and finding these field goal kickers at, man. Because, like, Kalen DeBoer's over here. He's getting Caden Proctor back. He's going up to Miami of Ohio, getting that. I mean, he's going out here and getting all these dudes, but Ryan Day, he's just like, oh yeah, Jaden Fielding can't make a field goal for me in the past 2 years. Yeah, we'll rock with him again.
We'll roll. We'll ride. Let's ride.
Yeah. So like I said, Texas wins 27-16. I could see it getting worse, but I could also see this being a close game. If Quinn Ewers doesn't take care of the ball, if Will Johnson, say he does come up with a pick 6 or something like that, I could see this being a much closer game. But I think you're relying on that. If you're Michigan, you're relying on a defensive touchdown. but I think Sark knows that, and so as long as Sark doesn't get too impatient, I think he'll have his guys take care of the ball.